All right, Miss Heather. First of all, it's always great seeing you. And last time that we spoke and we talked one on one, you were joining the Army Reserves, you know, and the biggest thing is you were helping your high school team, Laura Botetourt, you know, qualify for the state soccer tournament.
Mhm.
Talk just a little bit about just that whole experience and making the decision you made, because I'm sure it wasn't an easy one. You help a team get there, and all of a sudden you got to go and you got to play soldier.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it that I remember, I enlisted back in August, so it was something my team knew about that whole season. I mean, we talked about it from time to time, and I remember talking to my coaches kind of early on in the season and them kind of letting me know, if we get this far, it could go up to this date. And at that point, I already had my shipping date. I was leaving June 4th, no matter what. And time kept coming and we kept going throughout the season. We were progressing. And I remember, I forget the exact day that they had, but they ended up having the very next game after I left around June 5th or June 6th. And, it was the first one I'd be missing. And I was so sad just because I wanted so bad to almost call up Uncle Sam and be like, "Can I have a few more days? My high school still needs me for a little bit." But obviously not. Um, I was sad that I'd be leaving my team, but I knew what I was doing was something that they were proud of, something that, you know, I think they respected me for, and there were a lot of teary eyes, but they all saw me at the airport when I left that day. The whole team came, so I knew that they were backing me 100% no matter what I did.
It's interesting looking at your history, your family. I mean, you got siblings, your dad. I mean, you had so many, grandparents. You had so many people in the military. Talk about how their background shaped you into wanting to join the military.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say I think my brother is one of my biggest role models. When I was little, I wanted to do everything Sam was doing. So when he played that sport, I wanted to play that sport. And when he enlisted in high school, he joined the Army National Guard. And it kind of got me thinking, like, maybe I could do a military route. And I used to bug him with questions. My grandpa on my mom's side was in the Army Reserves, and then my grandpa on my dad's side was in the Marines. So you can imagine my grandpa on my dad's side, his reaction when both of his grandchildren went to the Army. He must have been like, "What did I do wrong to do that? Why'd nobody join the Marines?" So
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it's been a huge thing in my family, and talking to them about their life and how the military treated them. And I think the biggest thing was when I saw my brother enlist, it just gave me like all that kind of confidence and motivation that, I want to do that too.
So then, like I said, in June of 2018, you go to basic training. Where was your basic training and all that other stuff, and how did that experience help you?
Yeah, so my basic training was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, down in Columbia, South Carolina. So, it was definitely a culture shock. I remembered, asking my brother a billion questions, because he didn't go to that base. He went to a different one, but I was asking him just so many questions of how the experience is and what to expect. So when I got there, I thought I did my research, I did everything that I was supposed to. And like I think many people have realized, it's much different than what you read about and what you see on some of these videos. Um, it's definitely it's a life changing moment. Like the their whole idea of they want to break you down so they can build you back up better than ever. So, I mean, there were limits I met physically where, it felt like I couldn't take another step or I couldn't do another push up. But a huge part of it was the mental side of it, and it's being away from family. and it's not talking to them every day, having to write letters when I'm used to phone calls or text messages. And a lot of it is having an internal battle of, having to find the foundation of what brought you here. So when I would be really struggling with it, I'd think, I want to quit so bad right now. What's keeping me from not? What were the real reasons I joined? Did I join it just for college money, or did I do it because I wanted to find something in me that meant, that I had a purpose? So, a lot of it, people will say maybe it's the physical side that's the hardest, but I think for me, a lot of it was that mental barrier that kept me going.
And obviously, being a high school athlete, just talk about how that helped you go through basic training. Because I know when I went through basic training, yeah, I ran track and I played football, and I know that helped me out a lot. Talk about how being a high school athlete helped you go through basic training.
It gave me a significant advantage, I can say. So that was back when the Army was still using their old fitness test, which consisted of push ups and sit ups and the 2 mile run. And so, coming as a soccer player and I ran track, running wasn't a problem for me, which was great because my drill sergeants thought that was like the worst kind of punishment almost, having to go run down, touch a sign, or complete a lap or something in a time frame. So it gave me an advantage because I didn't mind it too much. And really early on in my cycle, I think I was able to stand out from my peers around me because I was consistently meeting these scores and I was consistently going above and beyond when they asked for something physical. And I think little by little from that, and then making sure I had time to study things throughout basic when we were getting graded on things, a lot of it I think was the reason that I ended up getting promoted at the very end of basic. I think in my cycle there was one other female besides myself that were consistently outperforming and outscoring a bunch of the males physically, depending on the grade chart. And um, at the end of it, I think we were like the only two females that got promoted from it. So, I mean, huge advantage and just something I was very glad that I was doing up until, a couple of days before I shipped out.
I know that had to be big. So talk to me. Then you go from basic training, you go to AIT. Was your AIT still at Fort Jackson, or where did your AIT go to?
No, it was not. So I went down to Fort Gordon, Georgia. My MOS then was a signal support system specialist, so a 25 uniform, where all their communication schools are down in Fort Gordon. And that was an interesting experience because they give you a little bit of freedom and you have a different schedule. There's still drill sergeants walking around, um, but at this time you're allowed to kind of walk around base, explore, get different food you want to eat, use free time how you want it. So I mean, there were gyms on bases. I went to. There were plenty of fields you can practice drill and ceremony. It's using your time wisely while you're here. And during that cycle, I want to say that was around 20 to 22 weeks long. So, it's double the time. I ended up being away from home when I left in June for like 6 months. I came like right back home for Christmas. But it had its own different challenges. It's not so much a culture shock at that point as it's rather getting into like the army culture, the getting into what you're studying, trying to become a master of your job because this is the only time that you're going to have to train and learn because when you get to your next unit, I mean, you better be really good at what it is because you just came from school.
So after AIT, and obviously your situation is different being a reservist. I mean, do you do a little permanent party stuff for a little bit, or do you just go straight back? Do you go to college? I mean, how did that part of it work? Because obviously you got your degree at Florida State, but take me to that part after you're done with AIT. What was next, and how everything else played out?
Yeah, so as a reservist is a little bit different. It's not like I leave AIT and immediately report to my base. I ended up going home. I enrolled at Virginia Western Community College. I started classes there in the spring of 2019, going after business administration. And then I think that first January, I ended up going to my reserve center, which is right across the VA hospital that's in Salem. Reporting there, um, working on my stuff, getting introduced with the people there. And so, I mean, a lot of it just became a really consistent schedule that I had. Like, I would go to class and I would go to work and then I would go to drill once a month and it would just repeat there for a while. So there are options that you can do for longer extended stays. With my new unit now, there's always opportunities. If we want to catch a 10 or 12 or something week mission that we kind of get integrated with active duty. Um, and you can always volunteer for it. I mean, there's orders that are asking for extra bodies all the time. So if I want to right now, I could probably go online, find something that Fort Jackson needs of me, and go there tomorrow. So it got me definitely onto a schedule. But then I kind of spent the next 2 years up until 2020 just going to work and going to school, graduating from Virginia Western, going to drill. I got really used to it.
Mhm. Now, yes, drill sergeant. How did you you went to because the drill sergeant school's at Fort Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
It is.
So,
I got to go back to Jackson.
all right. So when did you decide, hey, I want to become a drill sergeant?
It was actually very funny because I did not. So at my old unit, it was an instruction unit. My sergeant major asked me if I would go be the NCO, the non-commissioned officer that represented the unit at a best warrior competition down in Fort Knox. And so in 2021, I went down to Fort Knox and I competed in this like week long best warrior competition. I mean, they had me going up Victory Tower again, where I'm rappelling with something on, with my whole ruck on and my weapon, and then with my whole ruck on, my weapon, no wall. I mean, they had me doing things I haven't done since basic or I haven't done whatsoever. We did combat water survival. They had me taking apart, machine guns I've never touched because that's not my weapon. So I I was participating in that, and on one of the last days, we're getting ready for our big board ceremony. And I had someone who was cadre, who was helping us, kind of approach me. And he's asking me, I'm coming from a drill sergeant unit. Have you ever thought about being a drill sergeant? And after that week, and after seeing, everything that they get pushed through, I was like, no, thank you. But I do really appreciate your time. It was great. And, I went back home down to Tallahassee and I see this email waiting in my inbox. And he's reaching back out again. He's like, I would love for you to call me. I could tell you a little bit more about everything, see if you're interested. And so I wanted to be nice. And so I mailed him back. We set up a meeting. And, it turned into a conversation of him giving me expectations and growth in my career, what it would mean of me. And, what I did this past week, doesn't really compare to what I might see at drill sergeant school in Fort Jackson. So he talked me into it a little bit. And later on, I think that week or so, I ended up transferring units to go to a drill sergeant unit that we have. Um, and they pretty much spent the next 6 months or so preparing me to go to the drill sergeant academy. Um, and it's a really good progress where every week, they have different assignments for me, and it's pretty much modeling itself after what you learn at the academy and what your expectations are. Because I told them they're not going to send me back to Fort Jackson until I graduated school. I think I got transferred in that unit back in September of last year, and I didn't graduate till May this year. And I made it very, very clear, I'll keep coming to drills and I'll keep studying my stuff, but I don't want to go on long orders again until I finish school. that's what ended up happening. And then this June, I was back 4 years later to Fort Jackson, just doing something a little bit different.
In the process, I mean, like I said, when I was in the Army, drill sergeants were the backbone. I mean, they did the training and obviously that had to be a different experience in the sense that, being a drill sergeants are the initial, people that train you, that get you ready for military service, whether it's National Guard, reserves, or active
Mm.
duty. So you became a drill sergeant, excuse me, and then obviously you're doing that, you know, talk about how that helped you and how that shaped you to now where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think throughout also my army career, I've always wanted to be the soldier that someone can rely on. So when I was at my first unit, and I was still a private, I wanted to be the person that people could ask for help or could ask me if they needed something. And it didn't much change when I became a non-commissioned officer because I wanted to help my soldiers. I wanted to be there for them. I wanted to model and be almost the perfect soldier that they could see. So when I spent my time at the academy and I was learning to become a drill sergeant, I found that those, fundamentals and those ideas were not too far off what I think my morals are and my ethics are within my career. You know, when I see a drill sergeant, I see a scary hat, but I see a professional soldier who has spent serious time working hard to master, everything at a basic level. A really good teacher who is able to lead soldiers. And, I wanted to be that and I wanted to do my best. So, at the time at the academy, I can remember many nights, staying up late with some of my peers who just weren't able to understand a concept or just weren't able to, repeat everything that we have to say. And some of these are really long modules that we use. When we're explaining the position of attention to a soldier, we have to say it verbatim, and some of them get really long.
Mm.
And I wanted so desperately to put almost like a different bar for myself that I could overcome for it because I'm at the academy with these people who have been in the army 20 years. I've been in the academy with people that have been in the honor guard, people that are in special forces, I have to bring something to the table that I haven't yet because I'm so early into my career. So um, a lot of it was just, my dedication to the work, my overall care for soldiers. I didn't want to be there just to get the cool hat. The cool hat comes with it, but you know, at the end of it, it's I think just my want and desire to lead the next generation of soldiers in the best way that I can see fit. Because that wasn't me not too long ago. And being able to still, have empathy for them and to still have that understanding of what it was like, getting off that bus 4 months ago at Fort Jackson, it gave me like this sort of motivation that I had to dig deeper now so I could dig deeper in the future when I'm training these young soldiers.
How many cycles have you had with the in basic training with the soldiers yet, or have you had any yet?
Yeah, so it is a little different still with reserves. So I still have missions that I go on, but they're not exact cycles like my active duty counterparts would have. So my unit specializes in training the VMI and Virginia Tech cadets instead. So these are, young officers that are still in college, they're still in school, and depending on the weekend, they might have a full weekend where they're out in the field, and so we're there to train them with things like land navigation and maybe some combat medicine, things like that. And so I've been on a few missions this past year because I've only been home since August from the academy. So I was there, this fall some doing some missions with the cadets themselves. But then this summer, we'll have our annual training at Fort Knox, where these same cadets and cadets from across the country will come to Fort Knox for their summer training, and then I'll start picking up my cycles, where I'll get to see a full amount of them kind of shift through, and I'll get to be waking them up, putting them to bed, taking them to chow, things like that. So
So now, looking at you now today, you got your degree from Florida State and hospitality and things of that nature. Now you're in Nashville, Tennessee, as they say,
sure am.
assistant manager of the Drury Hotel down there. I'm sorry, Drury Inns and Suites, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. See, I had to make sure. See, I had to make sure if it was in there. How did your military experience currently and through the past, how has that helped you get you where you are today as far as in hotel management?
Yeah. I think my care for people kind of extends that. I've realized throughout the years, I think one of my biggest purposes that I've found in life is just the act of serving people, whether that be in the army by serving my country and serving Americans, or if it is, on the civilian side where I can be some kind of service to you. And hospitality really grabbed my attention with that. When you're in a restaurant, you have your server, you have the customer, and hotels, you have, your managers, you have your guests. And it kind of fit hand in hand for me because I'm a huge people person. I love to talk to people. I love to, do acts of service for people. And it was really easy, I think, to navigate into that realm, um, doing all that. So in Florida State, I declared my major pretty early on that I wanted to go into hospitality. I started working at a hotel part time, to kind of get the feel for it, see if I liked the hotel life. And then in my senior year, yeah, I had a recruiter from Drury Hotels reach out to me, kind of give them an idea of what their hotel and family company are about. And I just recently got done with a bunch of my manager and training stuff down in downtown Nashville, and I got to stay a little bit longer. And so now I'm at the airport location. That's at Drury, here in Nashville. So I'm having a great time. I'm really enjoying it. There's still lots of things I need to learn as a young manager, but when you've led a platoon of 60 plus cadets trying to do their own thing, guests that are just trying to have a good night's sleep, they don't compare.
And the neat thing is that no matter where you go throughout the country, you always have a place to go to stay. So you can stay.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the perks, I'm sure. You go to any jury, you be like, okay, I'm a manager here. Give me your room, the best room you got, and I know how you can do it.
I mean, I'm a big traveling person for work or for leisure, so it's not bad to have that in the back pocket.
That's true. So I guess another thing too is obviously family's important when it comes to being in the military, and the fact that your wife, is married to a soldier. How valuable has she been to you, helping you in that regard too? Because I know, obviously, I mean, I was married to another soldier, so I was married to
Mhm.
her. But for you personally, how has that been helpful too? Because I know, family support's big, and obviously, being married, that has to help.
Right. Yeah, my wife is my biggest support system. She's like my rock. During my time at the academy, when there were days where I was getting headaches, studying, all day, every day, not getting too much sleep, she'd be the one to remind me to, put the book away today. You need to go to bed. And she visited me, almost every other weekend down in Columbia when she was still finishing school herself in Tallahassee. So, I think she is there to be an ear for me when, I need to complain about something. And maybe, because she's not in the service herself, she doesn't understand it 100%, but I think she tries to, and that's the most important part. She wants to be involved in everything that I do, and it's something that I appreciate because I haven't had someone that cared about the same things that I do, in the way that she does. She's she's the person that when it's the night before drill and I haven't packed my rucksack whatsoever, I'm calling out things for her to throw in there and she's grabbing my green socks, you know? I can't ask for anything more than that. It's such an important relationship to have, and I'm so, so lucky to have found her.
Does she have a little drill sergeant in her?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Sometimes I walk through the door, my hat comes off, hers comes in, you know?
Be like, look, all right, Sergeant Finley. Yeah, you're right. So, what does the future hold for this? I mean, because obviously, you got so many things you could do. I mean, you got a lot of things in your toolbox. I mean, so
Right.
where do you see yourself? Do you see a possibility of maybe going active duty a little more? Are you good with the reserves, or I mean, obviously the hotel thing is rocking and rolling. I mean,
Right.
where do you see yourself? I mean, what is the end goal for the Heather Finley crew?
You know, there's so many options for what I can do, and, I think about it pretty often. I'm very much enjoying my time with the Army. It's not something I wanna give up on just yet, especially with this new assignment that's going on as a drill sergeant. I've had some days this year especially that after I've graduated, I kind of thought I could always go the officer route at the end of my time as a drill sergeant. My brother actually did that recently, which again, it's like I feel bad because I'm kind of following in his footsteps in a way, but they're smart decisions. Um, so I haven't pushed that outside of the realm of possibilities. Maybe becoming an officer one day, commissioning over, being able to lead soldiers, but in a different environment and a different aspect than a NCO would. I've thought about just broadening how it is being on the enlisted side, maybe going to some more schools, learning more, flirting with the idea of being active duty. But I really do like holding the civilian side close to my heart, and I'm really enjoying my time managing hotels. I like that I can have kind of two different lives, one with a happy face and one with a slightly less happy face. um, so, I mean, I love to juggle them both. I think it takes my time, but in a productive way. I think they both benefit off of each other. So, active duty, maybe if the time kind of presented itself, but I don't know. It's just so much to think about.
Yeah, and that's the good thing is you have options, which is the neat thing, and
Mhm.
doing what you're doing today. I mean, it's awesome. Like I said, I think that you talk about family, you talk about everything else. So I guess really that's the biggest thing. If you can, navigate all those things, you're going to do great. And I know that you will definitely do well. So I am extremely proud of you. Is there anything that I missed or anything you want to say? Or did we cover it all?
I don't know. That seemed like a pretty good catch up for 4 years.
I know you did it in 4 years, but yeah, can you still get out there on the soccer pitch? I mean, you still got some of those skills?
I need to practice my ball handling skills a little bit. I definitely need to get back out there.
Yeah, you mentioned the warrior thing. Talk about that experience because you did the military warrior thing, which obviously led to the drill sergeant thing.
Mhm.
But you were mentioning you were beating out, guys, and you were doing things like that. I mean, just talk about just how helpful that experience was.
Man, yeah, it was so different. I was, kind of informed pretty last minute that I'd be participating in it because I thought that somebody else would be, volunteering for it, earlier, but it ended up falling on my lap. So, I mean, it was just a week of every little soldier task in such a quick amount of time. So I mean, we had days where we're throwing on our ruck and we're rucking to Victory Tower or we're rucking to the range and we're immediately getting down and we're putting ammo in our weapon. We're trying to qualify. we're getting back up, we're on the move, we're doing something else. Um, and I was told that I was supposed to be one of two females that were going to be in this competition. And so I wasn't worried about it too much. I'd have a roommate, so I could bounce things off of her. We could probably compete in the same area, so I can at least tell that I'm doing okay. And I show up to the barracks that first day, and it's just me. All my male counterparts are like a foot taller than me and like a foot more broader than me. And everybody was so helpful and so supportive. I think they liked seeing a very, young looking female trying to keep up with them. And in a lot of ways, I think I did. That was when the new PT test was coming out, and I'm matching them with the run and the plank. I'm hanging on right next to them, and shooting. I had shot that qualification before, so I'm shooting as fine as them. But it is a reminder to me that there are still things that I'm not as perfect in as I might think that I am. It was a good little wake up call of, there's always going to be someone that's going to outcompete you, and there's always going to be someone that's bigger than you and stronger than you. But it's not so much about comparing yourself as it is doing the best you can do. Try to outperform yourself, trying to set goals for yourself that in a year from now, that version of you is going to blow out of the water. So, I left that week actually pretty sad because I was like, man, all these older guys that have been in the army, 10 years, they made me look so bad. I look terrible. I'm young. I couldn't keep up with them. And I think when Drill Sergeant Shelton, when he reached out to me and he was like, I thought you did great this weekend. I think that's really cool. Have you ever thought about being a drill sergeant? I think part of me was like surprised by it because I'm like, did we just watch the same competition? Those guys had to have blown me out of the water. Like, I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm not. Um, so I don't know. It turned into a really good thing that has completely changed my route in life. And I think I would do it again if they needed me to, but maybe I need a little bit more time to work on it.
That's awesome. Well, Heather, I am so proud of you. I think the world of you. You're like one of my children too. Just 4 years ago, seeing this little high school kid, making the transition to something that I know a lot about, being a military veteran, an Army veteran myself. So I know exactly what you're going through, with the exception of the drill sergeant part. Didn't do that, but I know exactly how you're doing. So congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
good luck in your future, because I know you're a rock star. You're gonna knock it out of the park.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.